Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to day 8 of our JavaScript class. Previously we've kind of looked at a whole lot of stuff from last week, right? We talked about, like, we went for an introduction to programming and what programming is and programming languages, and started with some basic stuff with syntax and data types, right? And for this week, we've been looking at some stuff that are more fun, right? With functions, objects, and conditionals with comparisons. And we looked at DOM events and DOM manipulations, right? So yesterday we talked mainly on events, and we did some practical exercises here, I think yesterday and the day before yesterday, right? So I kind of compiled all these stuffs based on what we've learned. And
God, I need to go and eat something. I don't want to eat.
hello, please, if can everyone just mute their mic, please? Please just stay muted so we don't accidentally speak in the class. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I had a couple of stuff I want to go over. I know we have 2 tutorial classes, right? Thursday, Friday and Saturday, right? But today is Thursday. I didn't want to introduce anything new. So I wanted to go over some stuff we've done just again, like we always do, to solidify knowledge, right? But I wanted to see if we can kind of change the way we do it today, right? So I have a couple of things I want to go over, but I would like to hear from you guys. I'm just going to kind of open up the floor soon. If you have any topic, I kind of compiled this. Hello, please, can we mute our mics? Okay, so I want to do, like, kind of revisit some topics today, but I want to hear if I want to hear from everyone, or and like a few persons. If you have a particular, I kind of compiled these are like kind of the key points we've talked about from last week Monday, right? So before we go into what we have today, if you have, or if a few persons have a particular topic they're like kind of struggling with, right? You can just raise your hands and just like kind of just tell us you're struggling with this section. You want us to talk more on this section, and we'll just take topics from a few persons. Then we'll talk about those before we talk about whatever I want to talk about, right? So I have 3 to 4 new topics we're supposed to work on, but I don't want to work on anything new today, that is Thursday. So tomorrow, for tutorials, we're going to do some more practical stuff, right? So we're going to kind of go over all we've learned and do some practical stuff. But for now, for today, if maybe on your own, there's a topic you're finding it difficult to maybe catch up with, you can raise your hands and just let us know, and we'll look at it first before we go into other exercises. Okay, Shalom. Hi, Shalom.
Good evening, Sammy. Sorry, I always have questions for you, but I was wondering if you could just break down DOM, whatever that is. Can you like just give me like a summary, like a quick 5-liner of what this is really done or used for, and how it is essential for what we're doing? That's just it. Just a DOM.
All right, Sharon. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to, okay, before I take another person, let me just go straight into our learning material and go to DOM, right? JS DOM, yeah, so JS DOM, right? So basically, right, let me not use the definitions here. So basically, right, if I go to my code editor, right, you're going to see that this is what we did last month, right? This is our HTML file, right? So HTML is just a markup language, right? That has tags. opening tags and closing tags, right? So HTML has opening tags and closing tags, and it defines how our web page is displayed on the browser or in the browser. So I said last month that how the browser reads or displays pages, it reads the HTML file and kind of as like, excuse me, kind of lays it out according to your tags. So where JavaScript comes in and the DOM is, the browser gives you ability to, from your JavaScript file, manipulate anything you have in your HTML file, right? So again, HTML is static. So if I put in guest number, it's always going to be guest number till eternity. I can't change this after the page is loaded just with HTML, right? If I put in button with a text of match, it's HTML, it's static, it's markup, right? But with softwares, with the way things are, we need dynamism, right? We need to do stuff based on some stuff, and we can only do that with programming languages, right? Like JavaScript. So what the DOM does, or what the excuse me, what the browser helps you do through the DOM, right? It's kinds of passes. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. So what the browser just helps you does, right? I'm trying to explain this without reading the definition. It reads this the HTML file, right? It passes it, displays the layout on the web page, and helps you convert the whole HTML document, right? The whole tags. It helps you convert it into an object. And if you can remember, if you remember in JavaScript, we talked about a data type called object, right? So this is maybe the syntax of an object. Let me just say user equals, this is an object, right? So the browser it helps you for JavaScript to be able to access your HTML file, the browser converts this whole file to an object and exposes it for you under or via what we call DOM, right? Or the document object. So your whole HTML file, if I just give me a minute, if I just do console.log document, right? Okay, I haven't gone live. Let me click on go live. Right, if I inspect, it's going to give me my whole HTML file in here, right? So basically, right, DOM just helps you, DOM via the browser via DOM helps you, gives you ability to manipulate your HTML file, right? So about use cases, there can be tons and tons of use cases for it, right? You might want to greet a user, you might want to build an application that's based on events. And again, events are still DOM stuff, right? And controlled by JavaScript. So based on events, you change content on the screen, right? So in a nutshell, without reading this definition, the browser just gives you the ability to manipulate your HTML file via JavaScript through what we call the DOM, right? So it's called the document object model. It converts your HTML file to a JavaScript object, and you can access it in your JavaScript file. I can do document.body and stuff like that, and it's going to get everything for me. And as you can see from my JavaScript, I have access to guest number. I can always change it based on certain conditions, but while with HTML, it was written as a static file. Okay, so if I go okay, so let me just read this now after as I've explained, right? So when the web page is loaded, the browser creates a document object model of the page, right? Like what I said, when this page is loaded, right, the browser displays this HTML file and lays it out on your screen, but it also does something extra, right? It converts it to a JavaScript object so you can have access to manipulate it from your JavaScript file. Is that okay, Shalom? Is that clear enough?
Yeah, it's clear. So in summary, it's just like it gives you the possibility to manipulate whatever is on your browser.
Definitely.
Basically from your VS Code.
Yeah,
right?
from your JavaScript file.
Yeah, from that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, this makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So in case anyone is just joining, I asked before we go into, I wanted to go over everything we've done for this week, right? regardless of we doing it again tomorrow, right? So if you have any topic or any lesson that is still a little bit fuzzy for you, maybe you don't understand comparisons very well, loops or conditionals, you can point that out and I'm going to explain it for you. And yeah, Otman.
Hi, Sammy.
Hi.
Could you please explain loops, please?
Okay.
And the use case.
Yeah, all right. So I'm just going to go to loops. Okay, JavaScript loop 4, right? Let me see. This is a conditional statement. Then this is where loops start, right? So loops can execute a block of code. So again, without reading this, right? So I'm just going to try to define loops in an easy way, right? So loops just helps you run the same code over and over again. So this over and over again, it can be a number of times you determine, or maybe based on a certain condition, right? So each time with a different value. Basically what that means, right? So with loops, all the whole types of loops, right? For loops, while loops, whatever the kind of loops are, I'll just kind of explain with the for loop for you, right? So you can decide to do, let's say you have an array, not even an array, it mustn't be an array this time, right? So you can decide to or want to perform a particular task for a number of times, right? So loops just helps you the same way we have functions. So if I go to my code and just do this, right? If I type in function, my car, and this is how we've been defining functions, right? And what this just does, it gives you ability to run this block of code whenever this function is being invoked, right? My car. So the difference with this, right, for loops, right? So this will have all the loop stuff. I'm going to write it shortly. Loops help you run whatever block of code you have here based on different conditions and for a number of time you set, or maybe based on another condition. I'm going to kind of explain more and give use cases, right? So if I just go here, if you want to run the same code over and over again, each time with a different value, right? So often this is the case when working with arrays. So you mainly work with, you mainly use loops for arrays, right? If I click on try it yourself here, you're going to see that they have, let's say, for example, they have an array of cars or foods or of users, right? So I can tell you, maybe if you go on any software, same as Black Force site, or if you go to your training schedule, your calendar, all those schedules you see on your calendar came from a data store in an array like stuff, right? So it was looped, like we looped, like it was kind of displayed on your calendar via loops, right? So a basic example is this, right? I have an array of cars, but I want to display it in a way, let's say I want to list it like as numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe just a dummy list, right? The easiest way I can do that in JavaScript or with JavaScript is to loop through it, right? So if you see this, I'm going to explain maybe this iterator and stuff, this and this and this, right? So what it's just doing, right? For every instance of the loop, append, if you followed us during HTML, you know what's it called? I think, okay, so this is just a string, sorry, it's not a UI element, it's just, they just append it to a string, right? So basically, right, it just did for every iteration of the loop, add one element of the array with a new line. So this is text. So see, okay, now text is a string. Append or add an element of the array to text and break. So this is break in HTML. So for every array element or every car, it will just append one and put a break, append one, and at the end, it adds this to the page, right? So let me close this and explain the syntax of the loop, right? So the for loop, when I'm done, I'm going to use it and I'm going to do an example with it, right? I'm just going to come here and write it so I can explain it better with my code editor, right? So let I equal 0, I less than 5, I plus. Okay, so this is the syntax for writing loops, right? for writing a for loop, right? So I explained last time, the first, there are 3 statements, right? If you remember JavaScript, a statement ends with a semicolon, right? So there are 3 statements, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if the first statement is an initializing, like is an initiator, right? So I'm initializing the variable I want to use for this loop, right? So the first one says let I equal 0. I'm initializing the count, right? So this is sorry, let me just, okay, so the one is executed one time before the code block, right? So this statement 1 only runs once, right? So it's a little bit tricky. You just have to kind of understand how these 3 statements work, right? Statement 1 is only run once and is the initiator, right? It initiates the variable that you're going to use maybe in the comparison and in the increment, right? So statement 1 runs once, statement 2 is the condition, right? So whenever this block of code runs, it comes here and checks for this condition. And if I bring this out, it's just our normal comparison stuff, right? I is less than 5. If I is a variable, right? I is 0. If I is less than 5, it returns a Boolean value, true or false. So if you look at this, well, this is just a comparison and an increment, right? So if it starts, it runs this once. For every iteration, it checks this condition, right? And once this condition is false, it runs again. But here's the sweet thing. Once it runs, it checks this condition. This condition is false, right? It runs the block of code again. Before it comes back to check this condition, it does this, right? So this is like the increment, right? Because at some point you need to get out of this loop, right? So in the last part, you're going to increment. If you remember, if I don't know if we talked about this. So if I do let I equals x plus plus, right? This is like incrementing whatever x is. So it's just adding. It's just the same thing as saying x I equals to I plus 1, right? So it's just adding 1 to the previous value of I and assigning it to x. So that's just what it's doing here, right? So the third statement increments the variable, right? So it's just going to make sense in a while. So if I do create this for loop, right? And I say, whenever I is less than 5, console log, this is a loop, right? If I save this, what happens before I go to my browser, right? It initializes this, checks if I is less than 5. I is less than 5, right? Cool. It runs this block of code. Then before it checks for I less than 5 again, it adds 1 to I. So right now, I is 1. It comes here. Is 1 less than 5? Yes, it runs the code. Before it goes to check if 1 is less than 5, it adds 1 to I. I is now 2. So it goes on and on and on till 5 is not less than 5. So if it gets to 5, 5 is definitely not less than 5. 5 is equal to 5. It breaks out of the code, right? So this can be like kind of tricky if you don't have practical use cases for it, right? I have in the list of exercise we're going to work with, I have 3 or 4 functions that has examples with loop, right? So we're going to use loops and conditions in the exercise we're going to do today. But basically, right, loops just helps you run the same block of code. I can do this 100 times for 100 different users, right? So maybe I want to append a typical use case like I think of, right? If I have a list of users, I want to display them on a web page and maybe prefix them. Let's say let's say this is the user object, right? Let me say, okay, this is the array. Okay, just give me a moment. Const users equals, so this is an array of users, and in each array I have an object of user with let me just put name, not first name and last name. Name Sammy. Another user with name Samuel. Start spell Samuel, sorry. Then the last user with name right? So if I save this, let's say maybe I want to kind of loop and display some stuff on the browser or in the console, and I want to prefix them like with Sammy Blackforce or Blackforce Sammy, or like just play around with them, right? I can write a loop, and in each of the block, like in each instance of the loop, I'll have access to each of the elements in the array, right? So I can just do console.log. I'm going to prefix with, let me say I want to give them an auto number, right? I'll say Blackforce, where we have auto numbers, right? 000. Okay, let me not do something complex. Let me just do Blackforce plus the variable, right? So I'll just do, okay, so this should be users.length. Then I'll just do, users index I. If I save this now and check my console, I should see, okay, users index I is an object.name, sorry. Right? So if I save this now, I should see I had the loop give me access to all the elements in the array, but I did something with it. The basic thing I did with it was I just prepended, or prefixed all of them with Blackforce. Okay, so loops can come in handy. Loops are handy. We're going to see practical examples in our exercise, but what you should know, it just helps you do stuff or run a block of code for every instance of maybe an array, or every instance of a number of a loop, right? There are more different types of loops, but what you'll be using a whole lot is the for loop, right? Even in Apex or Excel source, you use for loop a lot, right? So again, this is what I just explained: statement 1, statement 2, and statement 3, right? So statement 3 increments the value. Statement 2 is used to evaluate the condition, right? So it checks every time, right? Then statement 1 is used to initialize the value variable, like I said. Is that clear enough now, Otman? Yeah, it might be a little bit complex, but we're going to use them for practical exercises very soon.
Yeah, it's much better now. Thank you.
Yeah, Adekunle?
Yeah, hi, Sammy. If you can just scroll down on JS reserved words.
Okay.
Yeah. If we can go to HTML event handlers, there's a message there which I would like you to clarify. Go down. Okay,
Yeah.
here. So in addition, you should avoid using the name of all this.
Yeah.
So, and I remember you said in class we're going to be using onClick and a few other stuff a lot. So
Okay. This topic is reserved. These are reserved words, right? What it means is I can't come here and create a variable name with let's unblur. It should work, right? So if you can see, they say in addition, excuse me, you should avoid using them.
yeah.
It should work, right? So unblur should work. Let me try unblur equals Sammy. It should work, but since it's a keyword, right, just avoid using it, right? So it doesn't cause confusion in the code. Let me try. I didn't even know this would work. Let me try on console login unblur. Okay, now I think there's going to be an issue now. Okay, console log Sammy. But see, my VS code is reading it differently. So what they are just saying here is, right, avoid using this as variable names, or what's it called?
Oh, okay, as variable, or not as, okay, I get your point. Okay.
Yeah, well, you can use them as event listeners. That's what they are for.
I get you. Oh, okay. I thought like we should avoid them as a whole.
No,
okay.
avoid using them.
Okay. I think that makes sense then. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Okay, Ola.
Yeah, good evening, Sammy. When you were explaining, when you were doing the last example with the loop, you said you wanted to avoid it being complex, but what you did was just not complex. It was magic. I don't know. Can you just please that's the last example you did with the I++ stuff that you did. But what I was asking again was the third statement, the I++.
Yeah.
That is a statement that goes on infinitely. Is there where it stops? Because I++ doesn't seem to have an end.
Okay. Yeah, so good question, right? So if you just have to understand, maybe you just have to get familiar with how it reads or when it calls or reads all of this, right? So yeah, I++ is infinite, right? But it doesn't always run I++, right? It checks this first before it runs I++. So let me just go over it again, right? Or let me read the content. Let's see if it will be more descriptive, right? So statement 1 is executed.
I actually wanted to understand the example too, but okay, please go on, don't worry.
Okay, so statement 1 is executed one time before the execution of the code block, right? Like I said, once this is defined, JavaScript executes this the first time, and this is just our plain old declaring variable, right? Let I equal 0. So this is what it's going to use to check the other two stuff, right? Then the next thing is it checks is I is less than. I changed this to user.length because I wanted to give a practical example. Let me change it back to 5 so we'll see something. So if I is less than 5, is I less than 5? I'm just going to copy this out. This is our normal comparison, right? Is I less than 5? It's going to return a Boolean value, right? It's going to return true. I is less than 5. So if this evaluates to true, it's not going to touch this red. It will run this block of code. So it's going to run whatever I put in here, be it a console log, be it DOM manipulation. When it runs it, it comes to this I++. Oh, I've done this once. It's just like what will I give that? I've done this once. Let me record that I've done this once. It's going to do I++. It's going to increment I. So it doesn't keep doing this over and over again for the same count, right? So I've done this once. I'm going to come here and increase the variable I. So I++, I is now 1 instead of 0. Is 1 less than 5? Yes, true. It keeps the I++, runs the code, comes back and increments I. So like you said, I is not going to run for infinity, right? Because it checks this guy, runs this code before it adds to I. So when I gets to 5, it runs the code, comes back, checks this guy. At this point, 5 cannot be less than 5, right? So if I go to my code editor and my console and try to execute 5 less than 5, it's going to return false. And once this evaluates to false, it's going to break. It's going to like kind of just, I'm done. It's just going to go out. So this is not going to be executed for infinity or eternity. It's going to always increment and check this condition.
Okay, it's not like if the condition changes and I is greater than 6, then he actually executes another output.
No.
It just stops.
It stops. This is not condition. It's if and else that does that. This is not condition. This is this is a loop. So if whenever this evaluates, it breaks. It stops.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Hi, Sammy. So for the username, assuming it was username, so as long as it has run all the functions for all the users' name, all the usernames provided,
yeah,
that's when it will break, right?
Yeah. So if I just change this back to what I had, right? I had I is less than users.length. So we all know array.length returns the number of elements in this array, right? I hope we can all remember that. So if this array has 10 elements, this users.length is going to evaluate to 10. And as you can see, I'm doing users index I. So, okay, let me make this practical enough. So the typical way you use rules with array, right, is to check for the length, right? So users.length will return 1, 2, 3. So this is I is less than 3. For every instance, I'm trying to access an index in the array. And remember, in the first instance, I is 0 to give me users index 0, give me the first one. I can play with the first one. If it increments I, users index 1 will give me the second element. I'll play with the second element. Then when it gets to the third element, after the third element, it's going to break, right? So if you use array.length here, it's always going to give you the exact number of the values in your array, and you can have access to all of them before it breaks out of the code. So whenever it gets to the last element, it will break.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Omo.
Please, can you go over just before the users.length that you were talking about just now? Can you just go back there? I want to ask something. All right. So assuming you want it to be short one, like you want it to stop at Samuel, just output Sammy and Samuel. So what you do is just put users.length -1.
Correct, exactly.
Okay. Then please, can you also explain nodes? Nodes, can you just go over that, please? Thank you.
In what, sorry?
Nodes.
Node, like, let me see. Node like this.
Yeah, like you had something on your list. Can I see your list again, please? Is it nodes I wanted to see?
Node.js.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
okay. So yeah, cool. Node.js, it's a runtime environment, right? So before I kind of use the terminology, right? So every programming language, I don't know if I have that image I showed the first day. Okay, I didn't add it here. Every programming language, like we said, like it has to be converted to binary, right? They all have an engine, an environment, a compiler that they work with, right? So JavaScript here, this is just for you and I to read, like basically, right? So for the browser to understand it, it needs to be not really compiled, right? Because JavaScript is not a compiled language, right? It's compiled at runtime. It's a dynamic language, right? So Node.js is an engine that's or is a runtime environment that allows you to run JavaScript, right? So it runs JavaScript outside the browser. The reason why the browser can run, the reason why I can come here and run JavaScript directly or attach the JavaScript to this HTML document and the browser understands it is, I said in the first week of HTML, right? The browser has all the tools and software you need to run your code. So the browser has what we call a JavaScript engine, right? For Chrome, it's V8, Firefox has its own, but all of them has a JavaScript engine. The JavaScript engine is what gives it ability to run JavaScript code, right? So this stuff is not just run. So whenever you hear me say, whenever you hear me say JavaScript reads from left to right, JavaScript moves all the variables to the top, I'm talking about the compiler, not really the compiler, sorry, the JavaScript engine. So the browser has it by default, but there's a software or there's an environment called Node.js, right? That gives you that same, what's it called? That gives you that same JavaScript runtime, right? If you have it installed on your computer, right? I have it installed on my computer. If I come here and type in Node and hit enter, I'm going to have a JavaScript environment directly in my console. I can do 5 is less than 5 and it's return false for me. I can do true is equal to true, right? So it's not just it's a JavaScript, it just helps you. It's a container to run JavaScript code, I think, in summary. So the browser has it. That's why the browser can understand JavaScript and pass it. But if you want to use JavaScript outside the browser, it's mainly used for server-side programming, right? So maybe using JavaScript on the back end, and you're not definitely not running the backend codes on the browser, right? You're going to have to install Node.js on the server or on the computer you want to use to write the backend codes. So Node.js is a runtime environment, right? It's a container that helps you run JavaScript code. When you install it on your computer, I can run JavaScript. I can create a full-fledged program and run it with Node, the name of the file, without having to open and attach my codes to a browser. So in a nutshell, Node.js is an environment for that understands and passes JavaScript code for you.
Okay, thank you very much. And lastly, events, please. Can you breeze through that as well? Thank you.
All right. If I just go to events, let me go to the lesson. HTML DOM events, right? So again, before I kind of read through the definitions here, I'm just going to try to explain it for you. So the same way I explained DOM, right? The browser reads these are all layout commands. The browser reads and understands this. and lays out the page. But while doing that, it creates a JavaScript object so you can be able to access with JavaScript. Same with events, right? So I am just moving my mouse, right? I might not know maybe what is going on, right? But the browser knows. Look, the browser or computers are comfortable with numbers and complex stuff, right? It knows where this mouse is currently. It knows if I click a button, right? So I'm clicking on this now. It knows I'm clicking, right? So events is just the browser giving you access to whatever your user does, right? With mouse, maybe clicking, hovering over, like right click. You can know when the user right click, you can know when the user moves the mouse, right? So the browser just helps you, gives you an object or a class called events in JavaScript, right? So you can know when the user clicks on an element. Let me just show you something. Let me inspect this element, right? If I got there by clicking right click and inspect, right? So this is the element in HTML. Okay, let me use our code, sorry. So I'm just going to inspect this, right? Inspect, and I'm going to see that P tag, right? So the browser knows when the user's mouse is on this P tag. And when I click on it, when it clicks on it, let me just use this and click on it. When I click on it, the browser knows when it's clicked on, right? So events is just the browser exposing an object or a class for you to tell you, hey, I'm listening on this, right? If the user does this, you can access it from this class. So let me just read the English definition they have here, right? So HTML DOM allows JavaScript to react to HTML events, right? Again, the browser exposes all this to you so you can maybe use it to carry out. The goal of programming is dynamism, right? To kind of listen and do dynamic stuff, right? So this is the browser kind of giving you access to whatever your user does. There's an unscroll. So if the user scrolls, you know, like the browser knows when they're scrolling, the browser knows the screen size of the user, right? So let me just see if I remember that. So it gives you access to all this, right? Yeah, it knows the screen size of the user. I don't know if you can see my console. So available height, but this is not what we are talking about now, right? So I don't want to really get into all this stuff. So again, in layman terms, excuse me, in layman terms, events are just like ways the browser lets you know what actions the user is having, right? You can know when the user is scrolling. You can know when his mouse over, when he puts his mouse over an element. If I refresh this so our other elements can come, the browser knows when the user clicks on an event and you can listen on it and carry out actions, right? So a JavaScript can be executed when an event occurs. So whenever the user passes his mouse on this element, I can pick it up and say, oh, hey, you passed your mouse over this element. Are you trying to click on buy? Or this mouse over is mainly used maybe on content sites when if you want to go away, they know when you take your mouse. There's this is called the window, right? So if you take your mouse on window leave or something, if you take your mouse out of the window, you can catch that and know that the user is trying to leave your site. Okay, so in layman's terms, events are just ways the browser lets you know what your user is doing, right? Then you can attach functions to it or execute JavaScript codes to it. I don't know if I still have what we did yesterday. I think I've taken it out, but I don't know if we're going to do one exercise about it today, but basically, the browser just lets you execute JavaScript code when an event occurs, as simple as that, right? So examples of HTML events, when a user clicks the mouse. So if the user clicks on the mouse, I'm clicking my mouse right now, right? You're going to know via an event when a page has loaded, right? There's an event come on page. Let me see, window.on page. So unload, it's called unload, right? So if you can see, yeah, so when the page loads, you can know when the page has finished loading and display and maybe run a function, right? When an image is being loaded, when a mouse moves over an element, like what I did here, you can know and just maybe do some stuff, right? So the end goal of events is to allow you carry out actions based on what the user what the user does or the user actions, right? When an input field is changed, when HTML form is submitted, stuff like that. And the syntax to handle that is either add event listener on the elements in JavaScript file, or you use the onClick command in the element, or whatever the name of the event is. Is that okay, Omo?
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam, please, can you just, your last statement, when you can use an event listener, on click, or what's the last statement you need?
Yeah, you can use an event listener in your JavaScript file by calling the add event listener on the element, right? So I think we have one element. I can do output element dot add event listener, right? Or I can go to the HTML file directly on the output and put the event listener here, right? So if I'm here, I can just do on click directly, on click, and I put in the function here, right? Or on load. So with the HTML element, you just have to call the name of the event, right, as a function or as a key, and JavaScript is going to run it for you. I think we talked about. Okay.
So this is like putting an event listener, like you're putting the on click. So when this function happens, that is exactly what you call the event listener.
Yes. So if I put on, let me see if I can try. Let me do. I'm going to take off my JavaScript file. Then on this button, right, I'm just going to do an on click and console.log with this word. Console.log hi. Yeah, so you can append like the click event directly on the HTML. So on click as the event name will be an attribute, right? If you remember, HTML elements can carry attributes. ID is an attribute, type is an attribute, class is an attribute. So the name of the event as an attribute, then the function or the whatever action you want to carry out. I can put in a function here, my function, declare the function down here. I think we did this yesterday. Script, my function, my function, console.log hi. And this should still have the same effect, right? If I click on this, it's going to console hi. So you just need to kind of learn the syntax, and if you do it yourself, you're going to get comfortable with it. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes, it is. So I was just thinking, I wanted to get this straight. Like those questions that you laid out, like you said you should try our hands on. When you get a question, I see that there's a manner in which you set about tackling the questions, the way you arranged it. You wrote out some things for us before you went to the scripts and all. How exactly, I think there were 3 layouts. How exactly do you put those things out? Do you understand? You understand what I'm saying?
Can you come again, please?
Like when you started tackling the questions, you went about writing, okay, document dot. You wrote out 5 statements or something that I think you took it line by line. You took it line by line what you wanted to do before you now went on to.
Yeah. Okay.
Before you now went on to. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it's maybe it depends, right? So that's my approach, or that's like kind of best practice of kind of solving an issue, right? So most of those challenges we attempted are very, very, very basic stuff. So when programming is not maybe just about writing code, right? Sometimes you need to create a flow, write pseudo codes and stuff like that. Me doing this, first thing I always do, I declare all the variables I need. Then I create maybe reference to all the elements I need. Then I define all my functions, right? So you might have a separate approach to solving problems, right? But most times I just make it easy for myself, right? I write it down. Maybe if I have a note, I just write, I need these variables, I need these elements. I'm going to create the, okay, so I can see I have comments here, get HTML elements. I'll create all of them as variables. Attach event listeners, create functions, then maybe just connect them and stuff like that. So there's no hard rule to that. That is just maybe how how I solve problems. That was why I started like that, right? So it's just problem solving, how the flow in which you use to approach problems and solutions. Okay, so that was just how, or that is just how I kind of do my stuff. Is that okay, Ola?
Yeah, it is. Thanks.
Yeah. So Ola Daniels. Hi, Ola.
Hi, Sam. For me, I'm just trying to get around this console.log, the string black force plus user block I.name. That user block I.name, how can I qualify it rather? How can I, what does that mean?
Okay, cool. So yeah, this, I was just giving an example, and you can run any code you want to do here. So if you can see, this is just array and object accessing, right? So let me even take up the loop, or rather let me leave it and use it since you asked about the loop. So what I'm doing here, in every instance of this loop, I have access to a particular index of this array, right? So in the first instance, I have access to this first object. In the second instance, I have access to this second object. If I just take this off and console log the actual, what's it called, instance, right? Let me just say users index I. So at the first instance, it's going to console log this, and this, right? So if I save it now and go to my code, why isn't it running? Okay, I think I took out the JavaScript from here. Just give me a moment. Okay, so if I save this now, save to execute advanced and event target 2, I have a redundant code. So as you can see now, if my elements were a string, right, I would have just done black force plus users index I. I won't have this name. Okay, but because the values of my arrays are object, and if you remember, objects are key value pairs, right? So that was the reason I had users index I or users block I dot name. So if I go back to the console, this is what is going to console, right? And I cannot, if you remember data types, I cannot prepend black force as a string to an object. So that was why I did black force plus users index I. I was just trying to access this particular string. I just wanted this string. So your data type in your use case might be different. The reason why I did this was that I have a nested object in an array with a key of name, right? So it can be something else, right? So I can have age here, 12, and just copy this age and replicate it. So it's just depending on your data type and your data structure, right? So I can just do, if I first of all console log this, I'm going to see that right now I have name and age. So the reason why I did this, right, I was just trying to access a particular key in the array. I can change this to age now, and you're going to see black force prepending. Why is it just one? Users index I, age supposed to be, okay, all of them are 12, so that's why it has them like on the same line, right? So if I change this to 120, 102, are you going to have them on 3 lines? So it depends on your data type. If this was a normal array, let me change it to our normal cars. Let me say cars sub or yeah. If I save, I do cars.length, and I just prepend black force cars index I. So I just want black force prepended to each cars. And I'm going to see black force sub, black force for, black force behind. So you just have to know your data type or know what is inside your data and just try to access it. So I was just giving that example with an array of object data type.
Okay, And another thing, this document dot gets element by ID. I know it's the DOM code when you're writing on VS Code. Well, you have them up here, right? And is that commenting out for gets element, its element, HTML elements affecting it that is not obstructing you or not showing on the web? Because I know that when you're teaching, or you said it has to be below, close to the last line of your code. But now you have them at the top over there, and it's not obstructing you from displaying your code.
Sorry, you said I have to. I said I have to. We have to have what at the last line of your code?
This function, document.getElement by ID. I remember when you started teaching us that most of the time you put it at the last line.
Okay. So see, this is what I said, right? So this is in our JavaScript file. If I go to my HTML now, so see, can you see where our JavaScript, see where I did our JavaScript from, right?
Yep.
So this page must have loaded, the browser must have loaded all the elements before our JavaScript. So this, me linking our JavaScript file here is the same thing as me copying all this JavaScript code. Copy it and paste it below here and put a script tag and paste it below here, right? It means our JavaScript is below our HTML. But if I take this script tag, I can put the script tag anywhere. If I take this script tag and put in the head tag or here, and put it here, for example, and take off my other examples and just leave the document to get element by ID. So now, before I open the browser, what's going to happen? I told you the browser reads HTML from top to bottom. So it gets here, it loads this JavaScript file, it goes inside, it sees document.getElement by ID guess number, but there's no element in the document yet. It hasn't gotten here. So if you put your JavaScript, let me hide this off. If you put your JavaScript above your elements, you're going to get errors while trying to access your elements, right? Let me see. You're going to have errors while trying to access your elements. So it's always advisable. What I said is not in your JavaScript file, it's in your HTML file. It's always advisable to link your JavaScript below all your HTML content. So the JavaScript is loaded last after the HTML elements and tags have been loaded.
Okay.
Yeah, not in the JavaScript file. You can declare this at the top, there's no HTML here. The only issue
so the coincidence that even on the JavaScript file, you're always having that document dots my ID below at the bottom.
Okay, most times I always have it at the bottom. No, it's a coincidence, right? It's not about maybe there's no HTML here, right? The HTML is in the HTML file and our JavaScript is linked below our HTML tag. So this will work fine. Is that clear?
Okay.
Omobi?
Sammy, good evening. I just wanted to speak about the JavaScript, the JavaScript itself, the page where we write in all the codes. You were talking about best practice the other time, like listing all the elements before you start solving them one after the other. I think it makes it very explanatory. That way we know how to go about solving a problem. And as we get better at it, we can decide to go through shortcuts or whatever way, or at least we know the basis of how to solve a problem, listing all the components that are actually required, most especially where we need to link the pages and the different core functions.
Yeah. So yeah, it's always good to follow best practice. It helps you understand the problem more better, right? Yeah, it's cool. Okay, thank you, Omo. Does anyone have any, or does anyone want me to talk about any topic here, right? Before we move on.
Please, Sammy, if you don't mind.
Yes, I don't mind.
Okay. Functions. Can you just go through it. Thank you.
Okay. Just give me a minute. Yeah, functions. I'll just go to functions. Okay. So a JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task, right? Before I read any of their contents, I'm just going to give you an example in our editor, right? So let's say, should I import a file? I don't want to import, I don't want to import a file. Let's say, let me think of a very, very, very good use case, right? Let's say you have an application that does one particular thing, right? Let's say I've used full name before. Let me just type function. Again, let me still use our add number, right? So you're building maybe a school software or something, and at, let's say, 50 lines or 50 places, different parts of your code, you have maybe 2 plus 2. Maybe you're always writing 2 plus 2, 2 plus 2 everywhere. There's what we call dry in programming, right? Don't repeat yourself. Like, it defeats the point of we even writing software, right? Let's say you have 2 plus 2 every time, or every time you're trying to format a date, you want to get the date, when we did new date, I think yeah, new date dot to date string, right? So this will just help you format the date in a clean, readable format, right? So let's say you have this line of code 50 times in your code base, or 100 times. It's going to be dirty, right? You're repeating yourself. Functions help you save a code you're going to repeat over and over again, and you can just call one line of code. Let's say you want to format dates. Okay, let me not use sum this time. Let me use format date, right? You pass in the date. I don't think I can use the dates. Passing param. I don't think I can use data. Then return param dot to, let me see. Okay, let me not take an argument for now. So functions just help you reuse, just gives you the ability to reuse a particular block of code over and over and over again. And you can change if you have parameters, num1, param1, you can change it gives you the ability to use the same block of code with different parameters, right? For example, now I'm going to use this without parameters, and I'm going to show you an example with parameters, right? So I always want to format dates. If I go to my console now, maybe you're building a software, and just do new dates, right? It's going to give a very long string that might not be easy to understand, right? But if I do new date to local, not local date string, it's going to know, not this one, new date, sorry, to local string. There's a method that makes it a little bit more cleaner. Just give me a minute. To this string, yeah. So new date dot today's string makes it a little bit readable, right? I'm just going to copy this and go to my code and paste it. So as I've declared this function now, right? This is called function declaration. Even if it's 1 million places or maybe 100 places later, I want to display a date or the current state. All I have to do is invoke the function, right? I'll just call format date. So let me just console the log format date. Right? So if I save this, it's going to console log the date. So this example might be a little bit funny or not really, or you might not see the use case, but I have functions in my code that are 50 lines of code, right? 30 lines of code. Imagine if I didn't use functions for them, I will have the same block of code, or I will have 30 lines of code repeated 15 times in my file. That would have taken like maybe 150 or 200 lines, right? Let me try give an example of what I'm saying. I'm going to let me write a program num1, num2 that compares these two numbers and returns the highest number, right? So I'm just going to do if num1.
Oh, sorry, Sammy. But please,
Yeah.
can you put that function you're writing down and just comment the one you just wrote out? Because I'm trying to understand something. So
I should comment
please
this one
don't.
out.
Yeah, just comment it out. And the other one you're trying to do, you want to supply value inside the bracket, right? Inside that.
Yeah, I want to
Okay.
give it argument.
Okay, so yeah.
So let me do
Thank you.
function sum or function greater number, right? And I'm going to put two numbers, right? So I want to check which number is greater, right? I'm going to do if there are a couple of ways I can do this. If num1 is greater than num, this should be 2. The second number 2, return num1. Else if num2 is greater than num1, and finally else return numbers are equal, right? So this is another good use case I'm going to use to explain two stuff. If you can see, what I just did here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of code. So this is a little bit more than the 1 line of code. So imagine I need to check which number is greater than another number 50 times in my software, right? I'll have to write this over and over again. But with functions, I can declare this as a function and just use it one time with different what's it called? With different parameters, right? So let me say let results equals greater than 40 and 50, right? I can do this 100 times and it will just be me calling one line of code. So I'm just trying to give you, tell you how function helps you reuse a particular block of code over and over again. I can write greater number. I can type this 50 times and change the argument. It's going to always return something different. So let me just do that. I'm going to cut this.
Sorry.
Just hold on, please.
Okay.
Right, just hold on. I'm going to just change the argument, right? 401, 510, 40, 50, 510, 410, 530. So it's going to return different outputs based on the parameters we passed. One, function helps us. We use the same block of code with different arguments and keeps our code base clean. And we can just always call that function with different parameters, right? If I save this, it's going to return the highest numbers, right? So none of them are equal. Let me make one equal. Right? So the first one is going to return the numbers are equal. So again, you can run one block of code different time with different arguments without repeating that code. So this is just like saving whatever template is here, and you can use it over and over again. Okay. So yeah, a JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task, right? So I don't want to read through all this stuff. So this is just like the summary of what functions are, what they are used for. You can use it to do more complex stuff and just call the function. If you have arguments, you can call it with different arguments. Was it Omo that was asking the question?
Yeah, I asked, but someone wanted to ask you something before I go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, sorry, for trying to understand the lines of code you wrote. The first one, the if statement. The second one, since you're comparing just two numbers, do we need to state it again, like else if number 2 is greater than number 1? Or is it easy? Is it possible to just say else, then put the value? Do you need to state another if statement since they're just two numbers and if one is greater than the other, or definitely the other one is less than? Do you still need to put the if statement?
There are just only two conditions, but I was trying to check for an edge case. So there are three, if regardless that there are two numbers, there are three cases. It's either this is greater than this, or this is greater than this, or they are equal. Okay. Yeah. I could have just done if num1 is greater than num2, return num1, else return num2. It will always return num2 if num1 is not greater. So it's like I said when I was writing the code, there are different ways I can write it. So I just checked for an edge case, right? So if I could have as well done if num1 is greater than or equal to num2, return num1, blah, blah, blah. But I just did it this way to check for a
Okay.
last.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. But Omo, does this explain what functions are before I kind of read through the whole what's it called? Syntax and how to use
No,
functions?
there's no need to read through. Thank you. I understand. I just want to ask. So in function, you can keep having functions. Those blocks are also functions, right?
Which blocks? The if blocks?
Yes.
No, they are not functions. They are just blocks of code. If whatever block you vote doesn't have the syntax, it's not a function. So this is syntax for
Okay.
function name, then parameters, then the block. So this is the only function we have here.
Okay, so all the other ones inside it are just blocks of code. So you can have as much as possible depending on the condition you want and just keep going.
Yes, I can have, okay, let me make this a little bit more fun. Let me declare another function. Let me see. I can use another function inside this function, right? So I'm trying to say another use case, but let me not do that, but I can declare another function here. Function. Okay, let me change our use case, our application. So if we want to get the highest number and return the number times 2. So now we are checking for the greater number, right? And just return the number. We want to return the number times 2. So I can just say function multiply. I'm just bringing out use cases from my head by 2, right? Num return num times 2. So now our previous application just did if num1 is greater than num2, return the greatest number, right? But now we want to return the greatest number multiplied by 2. I can just do return multiply by 2 num1, then copy this, do the same thing for num2. I'll change this to num2. So I've used a function inside another function. So if you just understand that functions are reusable pieces of code, right? Let me just show you what I did. I can as well take this num times 2 and just put it here, right? So I can just do return num1 times 2. But I created it as a reusable block and I used it in 2 places, right? So function just helps you reuse blocks of code and makes your code cleaner and sweeter. If I check this, it's going to multiply all those numbers that I was returning before. So you can use functions in functions. You can use functions to kind of separate code. As long as you understand what you're doing, it's going to make your code clean and sweet.
Okay, thank you. Then one more thing I want to ask is for functions, sometimes you supply the arguments, right? Sometimes you don't, right?
Yeah.
So when you don't, there must still be somewhere along the line where when do you supply? Am I putting my question?
Okay, I understand. So our greater number function has 2 arguments, right? And if you can see, we try to access the 2 arguments inside the function. We are expecting you to pass the 2 arguments when you're calling the function. If I don't pass those arguments, so I'm going to comment this out, and I don't pass those arguments, it's going to pass down undefined and undefined into this function, and we are going to try to use undefined to calculate our code, right? So this should either break, okay, the numbers are equal. Okay, so the reason return numbers are equal, right, for Ola that was asking, is because I caught an edge case here. So let me just show you what it's passing in. Let me console.log num1, num2. It's going to pass in undefined and undefined. And if you do, is undefined greater than undefined? No. Else is undefined, other undefined greater than undefined? No. Else return the numbers are equal. So to answer your question, if you don't pass in an argument, it's going to pass in, you're going to read the variables as undefined. So it's always expecting variables.
Okay, why I'm asking that is because sometimes we just put an empty bracket up there, right? Like, please scroll up. That's why I was saying don't clean up that one you wrote at first. you know, this is just an empty, we didn't put in any parameters here, right?
Yeah.
Can use it for the format date. We didn't put any parameters. Now, when we say return, at what stage do we now put these parameters for this one? When?
So you declared this function without a parameter, you're not going to, it doesn't, if you can see inside the block, it doesn't try to use any, it's not expecting any parameter, it works without any parameter. So without you passing, if I call this function now, let me comment out everything. If I call this function now and put in 100 parameters, it's going to ignore it. Sammy 1, 2, it's going to ignore all of them and just print out date for us. Okay, so if you don't pass the parameter, as long as you don't expect and use a parameter, it's not going to use it. But if you expect a parameter, you pass in the placeholder. So these are placeholders, and you try to use the placeholders. If you don't pass it, it's going to pass in undefined. It's going to read as undefined.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Otman?
Sammy, my question is based on the function. So you said the parameters, that is the placeholder, can anything be them? Like, for example, this norm that you use, can I just say Sammy and pass the function with?
Yeah, you can use Google if you want. It's a placeholder.
And if I use Google, for example, the function will still come out like it is now.
Definitely, it's just a placeholder. I can use my mom's name. I can use my computer's name, anything. If you can see, if you notice, right? Okay, see, let's look at something. When I'm calling the function, when I'm calling the function, I put my text in string. So I was passing actual data type to show you that for calling the function, I have to pass in actual values. But for the placeholder, I didn't put any of them in string. So it's just a placeholder. I can put in Google and Apple. So long you pass in two values. This is just a place where I say, oh, okay, I can put A and B to Z. So long you pass a value here and here. What we are just doing inside here is I'm expecting value here, and whatever value comes in here, that's what I'm going to use as my num1. So it's a placeholder.
Yeah, so the function, type, that greater number is the most important, right? Aside from the function.
Yeah, so it's the most important, right? So it's where you're running your calculations. So this is just an example off the top of my head. Like, there are many ways you can use functions, and there are many things we can do with functions. So these are just kind of examples off the top of my head, right? So it mustn't be none greater than you. You're going to be doing, sometimes you're going to be looping through values. You're going to be making API calls, right? Most times when I'm writing code, I have a function that always calls the database for me. I don't rewrite it every time. So in a nutshell, function just helps you save a template and gives you the ability to run it over and over again.
Yeah. So what did you call that num1 and num2 again? Placeholder, okay.
Parameters for argument. Let me see the name.
I think it's a placeholder.
Yeah, it's a placeholder. You can use placeholder, but I'm looking for the actual name. Yeah, they are all placeholders or parameters.
Okay.
You're right, parameters or arguments.
Yeah, parameters or argument, thanks. So different arguments, yeah. So it's either parameters or arguments. It's variables, it's where you pass variables down into the function. Okay, Omobi, you have your hands up.
Yes, Sammy. So that means that we have some special functions, right? That does not require us to define our parameters.
Yeah, so you can, like for our case here,
yes,
we do not pass any parameters. So whenever you're calling this, if you like pass anything, it will ignore it. So because we are not using it inside. So you can define a function without parameters, and you can define functions with parameters.
Are there others that we need to be aware of?
Other what?
Like special functions like the format states.
Okay, this is just an example, right? I won't be able to remember any utility functions I have in my code, right? So I know, but I'm very sure there are functions for math, I'm very sure there are functions to format date, to call APIs, but maybe whenever we like, based on use cases, we are solving exercises, I'll try using functions as little blocks of code so we can see use cases.
Okay, so is it that these special functions are called utility functions? You mentioned something like that just now.
You can call them they are basically utility, right? Because you can, it's like a tool. You can use once and you can create once and just use it over and over and over again.
All right. I'm just trying to get it so I could search. Thanks.
Yeah.
So Sammy, basically, like that return new date, they are inbuilt in JavaScript, right? You just call, you just use them.
Inbuilt function, or you can call them utilities to just help you, right? So I said that when I was talking about math, there are some things that if it was left for you to do, programming won't be fun, or writing codes won't be fun, right? Accessing dates, doing math and stuff. So they already provided that for you. You just have to know the syntax to call them. Mobi,
thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll raise down my hand. You've answered my question. Thanks.
Okay, so no other person has any topic they want clarification on, right?
I think I have one. Can you please touch on the nodes, please?
Node.js.
Node.
Like this?
Yes, please.
Okay. How do I do this? So again, basically, right, I explained earlier, right? So Node, it's a software. Let me know you compare it to Git. I'm trying to look for what to compare it with, right? It's an environment that, like, it's just a container to run JavaScript. If you notice, right, the two ways we've been running JavaScript, right, is I've maybe appended JavaScript to my HTML and my browser is reading it for me, right? Or I'm using the browser console. For this browser to be able to understand JavaScript, it has to have a JavaScript runtime or a JavaScript. If I type in Python here, right? If I try to type in Python here, I think def is for Python. You see, it's not even highlighting it, right? If I try to type in Python here, def, maybe a variable name, don't know if this is how to declare function in Python, right? It's not going to understand it. The reason being, it doesn't have a Python interpreter in this browser. So Node.js, here's my list. Node.js is a runtime environment that has the JavaScript engine, right? Previously or up to now, we've been running JavaScript in our browser because the browser has a JavaScript engine. If I just go and search for V8, Chrome uses V8. It's a JavaScript engine. Chrome using V8, V8 Chrome. V8 JavaScript engine, right? Chrome uses V8 to pass JavaScript in the console. Firefox uses a different one, and on, right? But Node.js couples that V8 engine that Chrome uses and gives you the ability to run JavaScript outside your browser. If I go to my terminal, I'm not sharing my system terminal, so I'm just going to use VS Code terminal. If I do clear and just type in Node, right? I have the software installed in my computer. If I just type in Node, it will give me that same prompt I have in my browser, and I can type in JavaScript here. I can't write a full-fledged program here, but it just helps me, gives me an interface to play around with JavaScript. So it can read, understand, and output, pass and output JavaScript, right? So Node.js, it's mainly used for servers or the server side of programming. So if you install Node.js on your server, you're going to be able to write server-side codes with JavaScript. I hope we're going to get to that. I am not sure yet, but Node.js is just an engine to maybe pass, read, and understand JavaScript outside the browser.
How can we download it?
Yeah, I shared I shared links, right? Just go to nodejs.org. Oh, didn't I share that link? Right, just go to nodejs.org.
You were going to include it in the stuff you sent out yesterday.
Didn't I include it?
I've not checked.
Is there a reference page on that? Like, let me see. What did I file? So let me just open the file I sent yesterday.
I didn't see it.
practice exercise.
Can you resend the file, please?
I sent it
Yesterday
to,
file. Or in the WhatsApp group?
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
WhatsApp.
Okay, perfect. I'll look it up.
Yeah, so let me see. There's a reference. I left a reference section, I'm sure. And there
Study
should,
note, that's the last one, right?
Yeah, the last one on the list.
yeah, I know I left it here. Okay. So if you want to download Node, go to the website, right? And just click on download LTS. Don't download the current. It's going to download if you're on Mac, it's to download for Mac. But I prefer Mac users going through this way, right? Using Homebrew to download it. I don't like all those installer stuff, but I left it on that document. You can check it on that document, or you go to nodejs.org. I'll paste it in the chat now and download Node.js.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we've attended to everyone, right? Otman, let me put your hands down. Yeah. So, I didn't cancel this download. Okay, so I have a couple of, of course, okay, I have a couple of programs, as always, I would like us to solve, because it's going to just help us understand use cases for everything we are learning, right? No. So let me just look for one that includes loops, right? Because I wanted to do, I just learned that. Okay, so let me see. I'll not do Fizzboost now. We're going to try to solve this one and one other one, right? I got it from this link I shared yesterday. So where is it? I got it from this link I shared yesterday. If you don't have it, I'm going to share it once again. So let me just open it and just share this link. So you can just get practical exercises you can use, and they're going to show you the solution if you don't know how to do it. So you can just copy that and maybe come here to practice later. So let's just try to do this, right? As we always do. So write a JavaScript for loop that's
Can you drop it in the chat? We can't copy it from this chat room.
From Zoom here.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can now, it's copyable. Just highlight.
You
can highlight and copy, right? Or someone can just help us paste it in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Sharing my screen. I don't want to open. Okay, my WhatsApp is open. Yeah, so someone can just help us paste it in the WhatsApp group so I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah, so write a JavaScript for loop that will iterate from 0 to 15. For each iteration, it will check if the current number is odd or even and display a message to the screen, right? We're going to use a console. I don't want to manipulate any DOM today. I'm going to use the console, right? So basically, right, this just says we should write a loop, and for each of the numbers between 0 and 15, we're going to check if the current number we have access to is an odd number or an even number, right? So we can display, hey, or console log, this is an odd number or this is an even number, right? So this just helps us practice loop. So let me just attempt this one, right? I will clear all these. Should I be sharing these codes in the group? Let me just please comment this. Right. Let's just try to solve our loop problem. So again, I'm going to write it as a for loop that will iterate. So we don't need a function for this, but again, like I said, it depends on how you want to solve your problem, right? I can create the loop in the function and call the function it will run the loop. But right now, I'm just going to write it in our file. So when this file loads, the loop is going to run. So write a loop that will iterate from 0 to 15, right? So this is our count and the end of our count. So I'm just going to do for let I equals 0. And again, like if anybody is curious, that mustn't be I, it can be A, it can be Sammy. It's just the name of a variable, right? but I'm going to use I to just make it brief. Right? So let I equal 0. So long I is less than, so they said from 0 to 15 included, less than equal to 15. Then run this block of code. So I'm going to read the question again so we understand where I got my two conditions from, right? So it says if you write a JavaScript for loop that will iterate from 0 to 15 inclusive. And if you remember our for loops, right? The first one is the initiator. So, and this, in case someone is fine, or maybe someone might not know, this mustn't be 0, right? So if this question says that will iterate from 6 to 15, it just wants from 6 to 15 should be 9, right? It just wants 9 counts. I can say let I equals to, what was it called? 6, right? And to start the instance or start counting for 6, right? But most times the loop starts from a variable 0. So 0 to 15 increments, right? So this is going to run 15 times. For each iteration, that is each block of code, right? So each block of code is each iteration. It will check if the current number is odd or even. So, and display a message to the console. So we have freedom to pick the message we want. But first of all, we have to determine how to check if a number is odd or even, right? If I go to JavaScript, so this is just like a mathematical, not like a mathematical challenge, right? We can just solve it with a little mathematical knowledge, right? So let me I want to show you an operator. I'll go to JavaScript operator. There's an operator in JavaScript we call modulus that will help you do this easily. So you don't have to be looking for factors of 2 or factors. So this is it, right? This symbol will divide two numbers and give you the remainder, right? So if I go to my console now, in case you've not played around with this symbol, if I do 2, where is it? Modulus 2 is going to do 2 divided by 2 and give me the remainder as the response, right? So let me do 5 modulus 2. So what you did here is 5 divided by 2 is 4, but it has 1 left, right? If I hit enter, it's going to output 1. So the modulus operator returns division remainder, right? And our question says we should check if a number is odd or even. And the easiest way you can check if a number is even is for you to divide it by 2 and make sure it doesn't have any remainder. So 2 can go into 2 without any remainder. 2 can go into 4, 6, and 8. Then to check an odd number, if you divide the number by 2, it must have a remainder, right? So if I do 10 2, it will return 0. So I'm very sure 10 is an even number. So I can go on and on 100, 50, 44, and it will always return 0. So the way we could write our condition, right? So this is each instance. I want to check if this current number is odd or even. So I can just do maybe for reference, check if number is odd or even, right? I'll just do if I. So I is our current instance, right? If I modulus divided by 2 is equals 0, right? So again, I'll take a step back, go to my console and show if I do 2 modulus 2 is always going to return an output, right? So we want to check for even numbers. Our first condition is trying to check for even numbers. And if you divide any number by 2, if you divide any even number by 2, it will always return 0. Always. That is, even if it's 1,050,000, 45. Okay, 45 is an odd number, right? So our first condition just checks if it's an even number. If it's not, we can just do else, right? So before I write the code, if I, which is our current instance, divided by 2 doesn't have any remainder, it's an even number, right? Else it's an odd number. Okay, so right now I don't want to use DOM manipulation, excuse me, I can just do console.log I am even, and I'll add the number, right? Plus I. Then for the next one, I'm just going to do console.log I am odd, then plus the number. If I save this now, before I go to the console, so our problem says, or is even outputting it, right? Check if a number is odd or even from 0 to 15, right? So this is a little mathematical, this is a little operator that just helps us check between what number is even and odd, right? So if I do I modulus 2, if the current iteration returns 0 is an even number, else is an odd number. If I go and check, I'm going to see that all the odd numbers, I am even 0. Okay, 0 is even, wow. I am odd, 1 is odd, 2 is even, 3 is odd, and it's going to get them correctly, right? So we just kind of built a little program by using if statements, loops, and a modulus operator. Before I go to the next one, I'll take questions. I can extend this, right? So if you can see, okay, so let me just try to bring out a use case for this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of code, right? So what if in our program we have to do this loop problem 5 times? I can create a function now. Say check, what's it called? Check even, or let me just call it is even or odd, right? I'll pass in the number. Then I'll just return. Should I return true? Okay, let me return true, but let me just, sorry, let me copy this, but let me not write a one-liner now. Let me copy this and paste here, right? No, sorry. Just give me a moment. Let me try see how I write this function. I want to use an if statement in here. So I want to check if it's even or odd. Yeah, let me copy this, paste here. Then rather than console.log, I'm going to return I am even, else return I am odd. Let me see. So if number, not I, so if number modulus 2 equals 0, return I am even, else return I am odd, right? So with this function now, again, this is out of this is not our question, but I'm just trying to show you how to use functions to extend code, right? I can remove all these and just call the function. Maybe I can save it in a variable, right? Let results equals is even or odd I. Then I'll console log results. This is a little bit cleaner, right? Yeah, so this should have the same response, or sorry, the same output, but we kind of removed the whole the whole logic. Sorry, we kind of remove the whole logic inside the function. So if you need to do this somewhere else in your code, you can just call this without redoing this and this. So we just kind of practice loops, if statements, and I use function to abstract code to achieve a result, right? So yeah, so that's that. Does anyone have any question on that? Then let's try to solve another challenge exercise that deals with functions before we go.
So Sammy, I wanted to ask, so we use return when we're trying to run through, right? Then we use console.log when we're trying to print.
Can you come again?
We use return when you're running through, like maybe you want to use you're trying to initiate a number outside of it. Then we use console.log when you're printing, right?
Okay, we use return when we want to return a value, right? We want to like kind of return is like breaking, or return does two things, right? It returns this value outside a block of code. For in our case, we have two blocks here. Okay, what you should just know, like return returns a value out of a function or a loop, right? And if I try to do another expression here, JavaScript is not going to see it, right? Return exits this whole code. Whenever it hits return, it doesn't go further. But console.log, I said it the other time, is just the way we have utility, no, let me not call them utility, built-in functions or built-in tools to help us, right? Console.log or the console object just gives you access to your developer console. You can do console.1, you can do console.dir, but the most one you'll be using is console.log. It just outputs stuff in your console, wherever the console is. It might be the browser console. If you run it with Node, you're going to see it in this console. So return returns a value or a result out of a function or a loop. Then console gives you access to output data to see. This is for debugging. This is for developers, right? Users don't see console stuff. Okay.
Okay.
You said if you want it to load, what do you do?
If you want it to do what?
You said if you want it to load or something, what did you do?
Load?
When you saw it at the bottom, at the browser at the bottom.
Like if you want it to show here?
Yes.
Yeah, I say console.log, but if I write console.log here, okay. I said Node. If you are using Node, if your code is in the browser, you see the console.log in your developer tools. But if you're running an application with Node, you're going to see it in your VS Code terminal. Okay, so now let me just give a typical example before I go. Let me just run that file with Node here, node script.js. Can you see my console? It outputted our response here in my VS Code terminal. So console.log just outputs to the console wherever it's called from. Omo?
Okay, so you said let's result. Can you please scroll up? Okay, so here, let result equal this. I see that a lot. That means you're trying to store this as a variable. Am I correct?
Yes, exactly. As easy as that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I can as well. So you just have to understand the user. I can as well do console.log is odd or even and take out let result, right? But again, we write codes to make it cleaner and readable, right? It's still going to output the results. But if maybe your colleague or maybe someone is coming to read your codes, it will be difficult, or maybe a beginner or someone that doesn't fully understand like one-liners. It'll be difficult for someone to understand this, but if you had it like this is a little bit more readable. I'm saving the outputs of this in a variable, then I'm console logging the variable. Yeah, okay. So let's
sorry, go back. So let's take, for instance, you can now come out and say you cannot use any other number outside this because you're using console, or is it because you're still using your return? Let's say, for instance, I want to check if another number, like let's say we want to check if 13 is an even or odd number. Are you going to write it out with the number, right? You say it's even.
I'll just call it's odd or even 13. As easy as that.
Are you going to put it under that console or before the console? Will it work then?
You mean in this block here?
Yes. Will that one affect it?
This one here?
No, I'm talking about this loop problem under what's the effect of this one? Yeah.
So the effect of this, right? We initially solved this, right, directly in the loop, but we abstracted, or we took it out into a function. So in our loop, we call the function, and we know that the function is going to execute this code and return one of these two values. We are saving the value in the variable, but we want to see the results. So that's why we are console logging it.
Okay.
If I put this up, it's going to throw a reference error. Result is not defined. Cannot access result before initialization. So we have to declare the variable first, then console log it. Okay, so let me just try do one more so we can just go. Let me see. Write a JavaScript program that accepts 2 integers and display the larger. I think I've accidentally done this earlier, right? Not really accidentally, I've done this earlier. Write a JavaScript program to check 2 given numbers and return true if one of the number is 50 or if their sum is 50. I wanted to do feasibles. Okay, let me write a JavaScript program to check 2 given numbers and return true if the one number is 50 or if their sum is 50. Okay, so let's do this one, right? I'm going to not delete this and comment this. Should I share this file?
Yes, please.
Yes,
sir.
please.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to share this file. So we want to solve check 2 given numbers, right? So look at the problem statement. We want to check 2 given numbers and return true if one of the number is 50, right? And or if their sum is 50. So can someone tell me what we're going to use to solve this, right? Is it a function, is it a loop? Or what's the easiest way to just solve this, right?
Boolean.
Yeah, we're going to need a Boolean definitely, but what should what huh?
No.
You have to use a loop.
We're going to use
Numbers.
loop, but there's something you have to use first. There's something that has to embody the whole program. We need to use a function, right?
Use an or.
Yeah.
We need to use a function. So the loop, if we want to use a loop, yeah, so once you use an or, yes, true. I'm not sure we're going to use it, but let's take it step by step, right? They say we should write a JavaScript program to check. So it can be easily done with a function. I will just call the function to return true or false, right? So I'm going to write the function check.
You can use this check.
Is this check descriptive enough? I think check numbers or compare numbers. So there's another full topic on
Sammy, what's that called? The compared number, what's it called?
This is
just a name.
It's a name. We can use anything. I'm just trying to use something descriptive.
Okay.
Can you formulate it yourself, or are those variables?
They are not given. You can formulate it yourself. They are not given, like use your function name. I can use X, right? I can use Y. But when writing codes, right, it's always, look at, if I write this code and I have X, Y, YX, ZX as names of variables, if I come here next week, I will not know what I did. You get, next week is even too far. If I come here 3 days from now, I won't know what I did. So it's always advisable to give descriptive names. So when you
like 2 hours from now,
whenever you're coming back, you know, okay, especially for this function, is even or odd. I don't even need to, if I'm reviewing this code, I don't need to read this block of code. I just know what it does. So that's another topic on its own, right? Yeah. So yeah, we're trying to solve a problem. Check 2 given numbers, right? That's why we have 2 numbers as param. So this is a placeholder 2. I can do param 1 and param 2. Okay. So return true if one of the number is 50 or if their sum is 50. I can write this in one line, right? But let's just do a comprehensive solution. Then I'll refactor it to maybe a one liner or something. So I want to the first condition I want to check if one of the number is 50. Who remembers our logical operator? So if param 1 is equal
to 50 /
param 2 is equal, why am I deleting? Equal.
So what's that //
Or if I go back to
okay.
our content and go to arithmetic operators here, there should be logical operators. Yeah.
Symbols.
JavaScript logical operators, right? So there's and, there's or, and there's not. What or does? Who asked the question? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So if param 1 is equals to 50, it will just break out of this comparison, yeah? So it's saying if this is true, or
Any of them is true.
just one of them. But if I put
Yeah.
it has to be two of them to be true. So it's just the same thing we have with your Salesforce formula field, where we have criteria and all. There's all, there's and. It's just logical operators. So if I go back to my question again, if one of the number is 50, right? So if first argument is 50, or
And if
second
param,
argument is 50. Yeah,
Besami,
param 1. So yeah.
Besami, the second one says if both of them is 50 now.
We are still trying to solve the first.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not got to the second one. So if any of the number is 50, return true. Right? Or if their sum is 50. So I'll do else if param 1 plus param 2
is equals to 50.
Then we are asked to return true. Else
false.
Okay, so we're practically done with this, but I'm just going to go over it and explain it again. So this is a problem that they wanted us to solve. So given two numbers, we have two arguments, and return true if one of the number is 50, right? So this can be used as a utility function to check if this user is typing. Okay, let me give you a case. Let's say there's an input field on a form age. We want to always check if all the users putting in their age, if the person is 50, maybe we want to give the person a particular type of benefits, maybe I don't know, maybe bank or savings or a loan benefit, right? So this function just check if a particular input or if two inputs are equals to 50 or the sum is 50, right? So if param 1 is equals to 50 or param 2 is equals to 50, return true. Then maybe outside we can use the true to do other stuff. Else if param 1, what's it called? Or else if their sum is 50, right? Else if param 1 plus param 2 is 50, return true, else return false. So we've just solved that question with this line of code. I can as well do this in a shorter way, right? I can just automatically write return param 1 equals 50, param 2 equals 50, right? Let me know it's turning operator. Okay, so this is just going to take my time. Let me not just try, but again, this is the solution of the problem I just tried to solve. So I share this link, right? I get most of the basic tasks I solve here, and you can check the solution if you have issues with it, right? You can just come here and just try exercises. So when you study, maybe when you study and you don't understand logical, you don't understand variables, you can come to this place and it's going to give you JavaScript exercise, right? See, you have functions. You can click and go to functions. You can go to conditional loops, math, array, string text, and it's just going to craft out use cases for you and just give it to you as exercises, right? So if I click on string text, close, I don't want to add. Okay, so this right is just to check whether an input is a string or not, right? So you can just play around with it and it just help you practice your exercise, but make sure you do the one I sent because we are going to be submitting it. I think we'll use GitHub to submit it, but we're going to be submitting it on Saturday or Sunday. And let me I'm looking for the chat. Let me just paste it in the chat. I already pasted it. Okay, so does anyone have any question based on what we've done today? I'm going to share this file.
Yes.
I'm going to automate it. Yeah.
So my first question is like this one, if you want to reuse it, the function. So all we have to do is just to check to write compare numbers equals to, right?
I did not even call the function, right? We did not even practice it. Let me just do
I'm just assuming that the function is called already.
I did not call the function. Compare numbers. Let results equal to compare numbers. Let's compare. Let me do two numbers that are not.
It's a whole lot of numbers. A whole lot of numbers.
Let's compare this. Then let me console log results. If I save this now, I'm going to see false because 30, none of the two numbers are equal to 50, and 30 plus 30 is not equal to 50. If I change this to 20 now, you're going to see true.
30 plus 30 is 60.
Yeah, we checked if param 1 and param 2 equals 50.
It's 50. Or the sum of it is
more than 50. Okay, yeah.
More than 50, right? So if I put in 50 outrightly here, or we can even do more, right? I can do return true and put reason. One of the numbers is 50. Then so I'll know what condition cuts my answer. Reason.
Because looking at this, param 1 will probably have values of 0 to 50, and param 2 also have values of 0 to 50. Because if you're having 0 plus 50 and 50 plus 0, the other way around, as it one increases, the other one decreases, you still have a value of 50.
Not really. It can just start anywhere. Anyway.
There can be cases where it's not catch anyone, right? So if I put in a 30 plus 50, it's going to actually return false, right? But if I put in 20, we're going to see the reason why it returns true. So it's going to say, okay, I didn't append the space. So true, reason, the sum is 50. So because 20 and 30 is 50. But if I just make 1 50, because this condition is first, it's just going to outrightly bring this as a reason. So if I save this, true, reason, one of the numbers is 50. So if I interchange these conditions, let's say, let me not do that, right? So let me not do that. So again, this is we testing our function, right? And it works. So if I put in 500 here, it's going to return false because it doesn't meet any of the two conditions. Or more.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, in the beginning, when you were analyzing the question, you were like, okay, should you use function for this? How do you decide the best routes to go about a problem?
Okay, it depends, right? So I read this and the question just said, write the JavaScript program, right? To check two given numbers. So in my head, there are a couple of ways I can do this, right? I can create HTML elements and put a submit button to check two numbers like we did the last time, right? Match. So number 1, number 2 match. I can create a function, but for this, I don't think we can do it with any other thing, right? Loops or anything, because we need to take parameters, two given numbers, right? We need to take parameters, right? And the parameters change. So one of the two ways to do it is to create a form in your document, right? Two numbers, number 1, number 2, and match or check. And you use DOM, but I didn't want to use DOM manipulation. I just wanted to use plain JavaScript and the console. That was why I went to function. So you just have to know all the tools you have, like the object, functions, arrays. So whenever you're solving issues, you know what tool to use.
Okay, thank you. Then secondly, what's the second question I wanted to ask here? Oh, I forgot that now.
Okay.
I forgot that. Maybe I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah,
never mind.
if you, and again, and for everyone here, maybe if you practice on your own and you hit a challenge, you can just drop it in the chat. I will always answer it. Okay. Yeah, so I think we're done for today. I'm going to share this file. So we have tutorials. I have tutorials tomorrow. We have 2 tutorials this week, right? It's Friday and Saturday. we're going to go over more fun stuff, but for today, I'm going to share this file and just continue with whatever exercise that we have in that document. If you have any question, you can just drop it in the chat. Thank you, everyone. We're going to stop here and bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sammy.
Sam.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Sammy. Did you say we have an assignment?
I pasted it in the group.
WhatsApp, right?
Yeah, what's up? Just scroll up.
All right, thank you.
Yes, I mean.